ESPN and ABC have delayed the broadcast for the Apex Legends tournament. This article comes from Joshua Rivera over at Kotaku. It says, this weekend's planned airing of the EXP Apex Legends Invitational at X Games tournament, say that 10 times fast, on ESPN2 has been postponed by the network, quote, out of respect for the victims and all those impacted in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, end quote. The broadcast is meant to show highlights from the Apex Legends tournament that was held at X Games in Minneapolis, Minnesota on August 2nd, originally scheduled to air on ESPN2 this weekend. This show has been postponed for 2 months. The news broke overnight when esports reporter Rod Breslow tweeted a news tip from an ABC affiliate station, ABC and ESPN both being networks owned by Disney. You can see that tweet from Slasher right here. It says, while ESPN has not made an official statement, a source with knowledge of the network's plans has told Kotaku that the broadcast will now air on ESPN2 on Sunday, August 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, October 15th at 11 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday, October 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Where to start, guys? I make it a point on this show and on PvA radio, on all the content that we make, to be measured and try to be considerate of most sides. Not consider it in the sense of like, oh, I sympathize with that or I even agree with that. But trying to understand motivations and why decisions are being made, and realizing that that nothing happens in a vacuum. That there's a context to everything. And I like to try to understand that context. And when you do that, it begins to like, I still react and give my opinions about those things. But when you can start to see the different sides and the motivations and why things happen, you can have just a more intelligent conversation about it. And I try to be measured on this show. I try to. I really do. I believe it's important. If I come on here and I get animated and I throw up my hands and I insult a bunch of people and, you know, do a bunch of crazy shit, like the point I try to make gets lost in the weeds. If you want my measured response, you can watch Monday's show, you can watch last night's show, because here it is, just full stop here. This whole fucking narrative that has been crafted since our dumbass president stood behind a podium and blamed the gruesome and grisly video games that kids are playing these days on the atrocious violence that we have seen over the weekend. This whole narrative is for the fucking birds, all right? And I am sick of these companies acquiescing to this narrative that it's the video game's fault. And I'm also sick of this, like, veiled sensitivity and sympathy towards the victims of these heinous acts, to say that out of respect for these individuals, we're not going to broadcast this. Walmart's whole decision to pull the advertising of violent video games is out of respect for the people who were victims over these during these heinous acts. This whole notion that this is a move out of respect is complete and utter bullshit. All right? Complete and utter bullshit. In fact, I think it is the opposite of respectful for these companies to acquiesce to this narrative and to undergird the narrative by making these decisions in such a way that seemingly validates this argument that video games have anything to fucking do with what's going on here. It is the most disrespectful thing in the universe to these families that Walmart is saying, we're going to pull advertising for video games down so that, you know, we're not glorifying violence. How much fucking money is Walmart going to make over this weekend alone in gun sales, as they're trying to make this like platitudinal, tone deaf gesture of pulling down advertisement. It blows my mind, guys. I've had it up to here. Like, I'm so done with the distraction of it. And this is not me as a gaming fan being like, stop messing with my fucking video games. This is me saying there are more important things for us to be talking about than this shit. And this whole idea that ESPN and Disney is going to pool, in ABC, they're gonna pull this footage of the Apex Legends tournament for 2 months. If this is a principled stance that you're trying to make, and you're trying to make a statement that it is insensitive to have this kind of these kinds of things on your network during times of tragedy, when in this country have we not been in a time of mourning over heinous acts like this in the last 5 years? Because from where I sit, it seems like every time the nation has seemed to move on and seem to heal and to finish their time of mourning over these awful and atrocious things that happen, there's another one coming in right behind it. So, are we putting an end date onto our sensitivity here? Does ABC believe that in 2 months, in October, when they go to broadcast this, that we're gonna have the conversation figured out, and that video game violence is gonna play less of a part in it in 2 months than they seemingly believe it's playing in it now? I don't know what kind of points they're trying to win, what kind of PR points they're trying to win in doing this. And look, I have stayed out of comment sections on these stories because I think they're stupid, and I have zero respect for just about anybody who's going to go into the comment section and praise a decision like this of being bold and principled and way to drive your stake in the ground, ABC, and finally take a stand against those video games that literally dozens of studies have been conducted of trying to make a link, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. In any kind of measurable way, it doesn't exist. I guess that's who they're trying to appease. I guess that's who they're trying to get to look at this decision and be like, man, damn, ABC, great job. But it's just so fucking frustrating. It's enraging to see corporations latch on to a bullshit narrative that's been perpetuated by our leaders when there is a glaring issue directly in front of us that they are too cowardly to tackle. Blows my mind, man. The whole Walmart thing is just baffling to me. Like, we'll pull down Gears of War advertisements, but by God, if we won't sell you this 9mm handgun, like, it's fucking stupid, right? Like, objectively. I don't feel like I'm expressing an opinion here. And that may be something wires crossed in me, but I don't think this is an opinion. Like, I think it is objectively stupid that this is the hill where we're willing to plant our flag in and say, this is where we stand on this. Like, oh, man. And then you had this story coming out of IGN today. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was hilarious, though. So IGN picked up on a story on Twitter that employees at Walmart. So yesterday we talked about the whole idea of the ads being taken down. And it was like a corporate memo that was being sent out to management staff across Walmart stores. And so today, I'm assuming in like whatever morning meetings they have with their staff, they were passing along these memos and telling them how to do it. Well, there was some stuff coming out on Twitter that some people were being told, like, we are taking violent video games off the shelf. Like if a video game has violence in it, we are going to be removing it from the shelf. And there were some stories going around that were saying like, we are removing all video games from sales right now for temporarily. And so IGN saw the report and didn't immediately write a story, right? Because that's terrible reporting. Like, oh, I just read something on Twitter and now I'm going to go write a story about it without actually fact checking it. So they reached out to Walmart and they said, hey, is this true? And Walmart gave some response that was like, you know, this we are doing this out of respect for the incidents that have taken place over the last week. It is definitely not a long-term decision, but in the short term, we believe that this is the right move for our company. And so IGN emailed them again and said, we just want to know that what we are writing about in this story is actually what you're asking people to do. And they came back with something in this that said, like, our previous statement still stands. And so IGN thought, okay, we've got these reports from Twitter. We've double checked with Walmart twice to get their confirmation that these are accurate. They have given us what seems to be a validating response for it. So we're going to run with this story. So they publish the story, and then somebody at Walmart is like, oh, whoa. You misunderstood. We have not changed anything about what games we are selling. We have not changed anything about that. It's about the advertising. You misunderstood. And IGN's like, you miscommunicated. But the story stood as published for quite some time before the correction came through. And I loved the end of it, the end of their update, because it said, and we too are similarly pissed. Like, IGN did their due diligence on this story and published the story that they believe to be confirmed from the source, from the subject of the story. Like, they did their due diligence as reporters. And then whoa, and it becomes this whole like hysteria thing. And I'm gonna put on the tinfoil hat. If I had my, do I have my my emotes here? Hold on. What? Siri just thought I was talking to her. She heard me. She heard me say tinfoil hat. She knew I was about to start going into a conspiracy theory, and she needed to know if I know all the government secrets. Tinfoil hat. Tinfoil hat. Ready? Not much of a conspiracy theorist, but here it is. I'm going to lay it out. Walmart has realized that this narrative around removing advertisements for violent games was starting to get away from them. And so they thought, well, we'll let this story about them pulling video games off the shelf live in the wild for a couple hours, and then swoop in with the correction to say, oh, no, we're not changing anything about how we sell games. It's kind of like the whole idea of like, you come home after making a dumb decision, and you're like, when you're a teen, and you're like, Dad, I wrecked the car real bad. And he's like, what? What did you do? You wrecked the car? And you're like, yeah, it's totaled. And he's like, you totaled my car and you didn't call me until you got home, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, Dad, I'm just kidding. I didn't total the car. I had a milkshake. It was sitting in the seat and it spilled over. There's a stain on the seat cushion. He's like, oh my gosh, why would you tell me that you totaled the car? And it's all about like just softening the blow of the actual news. So it's like, hey guys, we're taking all video games off the shelf, and everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're removing games. And they let that linger for a bit, and they're like, no, we're not removing the games, guys. We're just taking down the ads, in the hopes of it coming across like, oh, okay, all right, well that's a temporary change we can live with. It's not a temporary change I can live with, and again, it's not because I'm like my video games. It's because it perpetuates and seemingly validates a narrative of something that is just objectively untrue about the relationship between violence in video games and real game violence. All right, I've exhausted all of the oxygen that I want to exhaust on this topic. I'm so fucking done with it. Had it up to here. So we're moving on, guys. Let's talk about other video game news.